Hello everybody, it's the Historical Gamer once again, and today we're returning to Strategic Command World War II World at War in our long-running Let's Play series of this game. This is a turn-based strategy and war game that puts you in the shoes of either the Allied or the Axis powers during World War II and allows you to play through the Second World War in 2-week turn increments. It is September 1945 in our Let's Play series, and we are playing as the Allies. The war has not been going well at all in Europe. Moscow has fallen to the Germans. The secondary Soviet capital, which was at, where is it anyway? It's Kuybyshev, somewhere around here, down here, has also fallen to the Germans. And the final Soviet alternate capital is located at Perm and will likely fall before long. Hopefully not this turn. I think we've got at least 2 layers of defenses around the city in any one direction, so it's unlikely the Germans will crack through 2 layers of defenses in a single turn. Although it is certainly possible if the Germans get good weather. It is September 7th of 1945, as I've just said, and so that does mean we are getting close to the Soviet winter, although I'm not sure that we're close enough to have the Soviets survive another winter. The Germans, in fact, may be strong enough to launch offensives throughout the winter and still finish off the conquest of Russia during the winter months. We have formed one small pocket of 2 German units of a Special Forces unit and the 8th German Army in the south near Orsk, but we have not had the strength to reduce that pocket. And in the north, the Germans are driving on Sverdlovsk as well as Perm. So those are 2 key Soviet cities by the last sort of clump of forces that we have left in the region. Meanwhile, in Western Europe, we did launch a while ago an abortive invasion of France through Spain, which had joined the war on the side of the Germans, and Poland had joined the war on the side of the Allies, although, not Poland, Portugal had joined the war on the side of the Allies, but Portugal has fallen, and all that's left of our beachhead in the Iberian Peninsula is the base at Gibraltar, where we have the 1st U.S. Corps currently dug in behind fortifications at Gibraltar. It had fallen to the Axis powers at one point in time, although we have taken it back. I'm not sure how long that 1 corps of U.S. troops will hold out. The one place we've unequivocally won, is in North Africa, where the Germans have been completely evicted, and the Italians have actually been knocked out of the war in an earlier invasion of Italy, although the German counteroffensive is grinding back the American forces on the southern tip of the boot of Italy. Things don't look very bright there. Meanwhile, in Iran, the Germans have invaded south from their possessions in the Caucasus, taken Tehran, and are driving remaining elements of British forces back toward the Persian Gulf, and potentially could take some very valuable oil facilities in southern Iran. India is still holding, Burma is still British, but the Japanese have taken almost all of China, and they are driving from China toward Burma, somewhat effectively due to their control of the skies. We do have 1 fighter unit in the area that's providing top cover, but that's not enough. The Japanese supply situation is dicey, however, in western China, and so it's unlikely a full breakout into India will occur. Singapore never fell, by the way. The Dutch East Indies have largely been liberated, the one exception being Brunei on the northern coast of Borneo. The Philippines have been liberated. Japan is not doing anywhere near as well as the Germans. The Commonwealth forces have launched a liberation invasion in southern China to try and divert Japanese attention away from Burma. So you can see here a number of Australian forces, as well as some British and Indian forces, are located in southern China. If the weather goes in the side of the Japanese, though, the Japanese air power may be enough to drive us back. We have deployed a couple of Allied carriers off the coast of China to try and minimize the effect of Japanese tactical air superiority, but I'm not sure that it'll be enough. Meanwhile, the Pacific has largely gone as historical, with the Marianas falling to the Allies. Truk has not... Actually, we did take Truk, so Truk has fallen to the Allies. Vtok, the Marshall Islands have fallen to the Allies, with the exception of Tarawa, which we never bothered to attack. And the Allies have launched an invasion of Japan, taking Nagasaki and Hiroshima, driving north. It's likely that the 3rd Marine Division tanks will be destroyed in this next upcoming turn. There's only 2 hit points left there. But it's very unlikely the Japanese will make any serious inroads against our forces in Hiroshima. They do have 1 anti-tank gun there, which could be useful against our more heavily armored formations there. But that being said, I think it's unlikely they do much more than destroy the 3rd Marines and maybe damage the 2nd Marines due to lack of supply. One thing that we also have done is landed some Marines north near Hakodate to try and split the Japanese defense, and we're holding our position here for the time being. Although it does look like, even though it's not a port, we can task ourselves back onto transports. So that's the situation right now. I have been told there was one nuke dropped on, I think it was Hiroshima earlier in the game. I have been told that if you survive long enough, a third nuke, although I guess in this case a second nuke, because we never nuked Nagasaki, we had already landed there, would land on Osaka, which could weaken the Japanese forces in the area as well, and might give us an opportunity to try and break out here. But we're pretty well hemmed in. While it's unlikely the Japanese will evict us from southern Japan, it also seems unlikely that we will make much progress there. One other thing just to call out is off the coast of Britain, we just destroyed a couple of German warships off the coast of France, but we do have the Astoria heavy cruiser and Castleton destroyer that are both going to be exposed to German counterattacks, so it'll be interesting to see. The Germans are building up a navy that we need to be very worried about. Because they've taken so much of Europe and so much of Russia, they have a huge advantage in terms of income. You can see they're maxed out on ground units, over 150 ground units. Our allied countries are down here. And then you can see the naval forces, they're up to 22 naval vessels, which is not larger than the UK and the US combined, but it is getting up there, especially since so many of our naval forces are in the Pacific. They might actually outnumber us in the Atlantic. We've been trying to whittle away and slowly weaken them, but I'm not sure how effective that'll be. Their air power is pretty dominant. That being said, we've already done our turn for September 7th, so that was kind of a long intro, but it's been a while since my last turn, so let's go ahead and just hit the end turn button and see what the German turn has in store for us. Alright, well, 3rd Marine loses 1 hit point due to attrition due to lack of supply. Japanese still do have troops on Guadalcanal and Rabaul. We never bothered to take those islands. You can see Axis raiders are disrupting convoys from the UK to from various locations to the UK. Heavy cruiser light cruiser Brooklyn hit by rough seas. British are making progress in anti-aircraft defenses. In terms of technological development, we probably should stop doing such strong lend-lease from the UK to the USSR. The USSR is doomed. We might as well use those MPs to reinforce the British Isles, because it's relatively weak there. And the stronger we make it now, the harder the Axis invasion of Great Britain following the fall of Russia will be. All right, so we can see German subs are going after our heavy cruisers and destroyers. Actually, there was a destroyer going after our destroyer down here. So you can see large German naval vessels committed off the coast of Brest. Japanese are operationally moving around some of their air units that were exposed to our ground units there in southern China. Anytime you hear that railroad moniker, it means that the troops are moving operationally, which essentially means they can't use them again this turn, but it does let them move great distances for a cost. By the way, while this turn is unfolding, just as an FYI, I believe this game is on sale currently as part of sort of the autumn sale. I don't know if it's Steam particular or if it's just a Matrix Slitherine game sale. Another thing to call out, since a lot of folks on the channel do watch my War in the Pacific videos, War in the Pacific, normally like an $80 game or something like that, is on sale right now for $16. So if that's something you've been interested in, might not be a bad idea to take advantage of that sale, given it is so steeply discounted at the moment. Meanwhile, you can see a lot of tactical air action here by both the Japanese and the German forces. Some V-2 rocket action here hitting Portsmouth and Cambridge. We can't really do anything to stop that, unfortunately. German armored units are attacking here in the north. They just wiped out that unit. Where is that? Is that Kirov? Just wiped that unit out. They are attacking in the rain, so that will make their attacks a little bit less effective, I believe. Japanese troops trying to counterattack at Hakodate in the north there. Troops attacking our Marines that are isolated north of Hiroshima. Some Hungarian troops coming down to assist the German panzers in Iran. Kirov just fell to the Germans, but that's not really relevant from my point of view. It's kind of isolated and not near any of the major objectives that we need to worry about. All the German troops that they dispatch to like the northern portions of Russia are troops that they can't deploy elsewhere. So that's good, because there's very little economic value up there at the moment. They've already pushed so far past any areas that are valuable in the north there that it's largely just open country. All right, so Germans continuing the attack in Italy. They did destroy our lead U.S. army here. They're now attacking the second one in column. They also just destroyed one of the units directly in front of Perm. So in theory, the Soviets' final capital could be exposed next turn to direct attack. Meanwhile, Murmansk, the location of our Lend-Lease port, is completely unoccupied, and the Germans are advancing in that direction. Those two German units near Orsk are still cut off, however, so we might actually be able to finish them off. Our Soviet troops are so much less effective because the morale is so low and the overall situation of the Soviets is so poor right now that 1-to-1 the Germans will always crush us. But if we can completely cut their supplies off, we might be able to whittle away a few units there. You can see their attacks near the Perm area were very effective. I could swing my anti-aircraft guns south of Perm if they don't move any troops in that direction to prevent a direct attack on Perm this turn and allow our shock army there to continue digging in. That might not be a bad idea. But we'll see. That's the end of that turn, so the Soviets do survive for another turn. What happens to Lend-Lease if all destination ports are enemy are occupied? I'm assuming it gets destroyed. So first off, 4th Soviet Army destroyed, 1st Polish Corps destroyed. The U.S. lost the 2nd Army and the 3rd Marine tanks. All right, so we'll get our intel, and then I'll show you what I mean. No direct attack on Gibraltar this turn either, so that's good. Okay. All right, so before we deploy anything here, if we go to the not diplomacy screen. Where is it? It's the war map screen. If we go to the war map screen here, we can go to the convoy map, and we can actually see currently, if we go to the UK, that we have UK Arctic convoys to the USSR for 332 MPPs per turn. That's 40% of the British income is going to the Soviets. Now, the British income is being supplemented by income that's coming from Canada as well as the United States. So if we go to the convoy map again and we go to the United States, we can see the U.S. is sending 30% of its income to the U.K. So this is sort of the Lend-Lease transfer from the U.S. to the U.K. and then from the U.K. to the Russians. If Murmansk falls, I'm assuming that this transfer of 332 MPPs per turn to the Soviets will be cut off, and the Soviet income will drop precipitously at that point, would be my assumption. All right, so that's that. Might not be a bad idea to cut off that transfer of money anyway, because the Soviets are not likely going to have new units arrive before, like the money we spend on new units now probably will never reach the front. Meanwhile, the Soviets do have 2 shock armies that are available this turn and a garrison unit, a Brest-Litovsk garrison unit here. So we could throw this Brest-Litovsk unit, I don't know, south of Sverdlovsk maybe? I'm not really sure. They're going to die in any event, but where does it make the most sense to throw these guys? Maybe we should wait till the end of the turn. So first things first, we've got the Soviet Brandenburg Special Forces cut off here. If we attack, see, like these troops are so ineffective. I'll move my mechanized troops south here. They'll finish. My mechanized troops seem to be the only ones that can actually attack with any strength. You can see here these German troops might eventually starve. Oh, there we go. We destroyed that Brandenburg Special Forces unit. It was cut off there, and now it's gone. So we'll move these guys back up here. Try and reinforce these troops in the south. And so we got one of their units there. So they still have the 8th Army, which is a level. Part of the problem is I gave the AI a big boost in this playthrough. So you can see that the enemy has 3 experience icons by these iron crosses that are lit up, but they also have 1 bonus experience. So it was always +1 experience to all German units, which was problematic, to say the least. So that's something we've had to deal with, is just the fact that the enemy is always more experienced than we are because they just were given that boost. I decided to give the AI a big boost, and it's been difficult for us to deal with. Look at that. If we attack this armored unit, we'll inflict 1 hit damage on them. They'll inflict 7 on us. Jeez. All right, so that's probably it for the Soviets. We can't really do much else. We could throw a unit into Murmansk, I think. So these new units that we have, we could throw a garrison unit. Can we deploy it in Murmansk? No, we can't. So we've got to decide where we want to deploy our garrison unit and our 2 shock armies. Now, wherever if I put this anti-aircraft unit south of Perm, it will almost certainly die. But if I also likewise deploy a new army, for its very first turn in existence, it gets an effectiveness penalty. So if I try and deploy it south near Perm, it'll probably also die as well. So I'm going to go ahead and put my anti-aircraft unit here, basically to work as a bullet sponge. And then we'll put one of the shock armies adjacent to Perm here. I also apparently have an infantry corps, as well as a special forces corps. So we have several reinforcements that are coming into play this turn. If I scroll down here, where would we want to put our special forces troops? I mean, really, it's all about delaying the enemy as much as possible. So I guess we'll put our infantry corps here south of Sverdlovsk, really in a purely defensive position. We'll put our special forces unit here north of Perm. They're usually relatively good on the attack. And then we'll put the first shock army, I guess, near... what do we want to do here? The Brest-Litovsk garrison will stay at Kurgan to keep this rail line open. I don't think the Germans will attack in that direction, but it won't really stop much of anything anyway. I mean, in theory, we could put these guys near Urakabad to try and strike toward Tehran to cut these German troops off. They're going to be in rough shape from a supply perspective. I don't even know that they can really get down that way. Or we could put them north in the effort, you know, in the hope to maintain our pressure on this cut-off 8th Army. I guess we can do that. Meanwhile, the U.S. has a headquarters unit, Geiger HQ. I would guess the U.S. units would be better served to be in the Pacific, so we'll deploy them in Los Angeles. Meanwhile, the 3rd U.S. tank is available now, so we'll swing them out toward Hawaii and their voyage to get toward Japan. First things first, though, let's go back to the Naval War here. So there's 2 German destroyers and a motor torpedo boat off the coast of France. If we go to reports, we can see the Germans didn't commission any new ships, so they still have just 22 warships this turn. I'm going to have my heavy cruiser attack this German destroyer. It's currently in rainy weather, though, so my air units won't be very effective against it. And it did retreat into the port of Brest. Although, is it raining here? I can't tell. Can't tell if it's raining in Brest or not. Doesn't look like Brest is raining, but if we do try and hit them with air power, they're likely to get intercepted by German land-based jets. Do we have a path to victory with Germany having such a large land force, Ivan? The path to victory is this. I believe it's a minor victory, but if we can hold on to Great Britain, even if Germany takes Russia, as long as we hold London and we take Tokyo, I think that gives us a minor victory. The problem is once Germany turns all those forces back west and starts loading them on transports, they could very well overwhelm us. I'm not sure whether it's a foregone conclusion yet or not, however. So we might be able to hold out. I'm not sure. All right, let's move some of our... Do we want to move our heavy cruisers or battleships down here to deal with the torpedo boat or with the destroyer? Torpedo boat might be very good at evading damage. Seems like it. Alright, so our surface ships did drive that DD back, or that motor torpedo boat back. Alright, they've fallen back under cover of the weather. So I'm going to go ahead and use my carriers against the ships in port. You can see we are getting hit by German jet escorts. We do have American fighter escorts, or interceptors. We do have American fighter escorts that are able to provide us some cover out of Great Britain. But they're getting hit pretty bad. They lost more than 60% of their strength. You can see that air wing is completely ravaged. It lost 80% of its strength. This carrier has only 1 aircraft left in it, so I don't think we can do much, but we'll try. I guess we used up the enemy air in those first couple of strikes. There we go. We finished off that German destroyer there. So we destroyed another German warship this turn. I'll pull them back a little bit. So that reduced them down to 21 naval vessels. Our destroyer will go after that motor torpedo boat to no avail. Wish I hadn't pulled my carrier back. I would have hit Brest again, but I can't reach it now. In any event, we pulled a bunch of our warships back. There was a German sub there. Can't really... I guess I could try and get at it with a destroyer. What is this? We got level 2 ASW. So we might... It's a level 3 sub, so... So you can see the sub dove with no damage against it. Reinforce these battleships here. Ideally, we'll reinforce these ships here along the British coast. I'm going to move this heavy cruiser into Southampton, just to make sure there are no open ports for the enemy to try and land forces in. Move this guy through the channel, the Courageous. Try and hit it with carriers. They evade damage, but our bombing wing still take some damage. So our air wing took some pretty heavy damage there as this carrier tries to move through the channel. Enemy subs may go after it next turn. We'll see. I guess we can try and move some light vessels to shield it from enemy submarine attacks. It would expose us to enemy air attacks if the weather is good. We'll reinforce our... Oh, shit, I can't reinforce those fighters. Or these guys either? All right. I really need to get the fighter tech there up to level 5. Not sure if we can hit him from here. Also, not sure that it's worth the risk. All right. Let's move these cruisers down to Southampton. Maybe move this carrier down as well. Can we not swing like through the north? Okay, we can if we go this way. No, that's still the... Alright, swing it around that way. Less risk moving through the Irish Sea than the Channel. Okay. I guess my fighters, both my American fighter units already performed escort duty, so I can't reinforce them. But we'll see. So we weakened a German motor torpedo boat and destroyed a destroyer this turn. We'll see if the Germans want to come out and fight more along the coast near St. George's Channel or not. Do we have any other naval vessels? No. All right. What about down here? Our battleship will keep bombarding the German army at Cadiz to try and limit its effectiveness, its supply situation, as the American troops at Gibraltar dig in. Meanwhile, as you can see here, we did lose one army in Italy. We're going to pull back the Bradley headquarters unit to Syracuse, where it'll draw more supply. I'm going to... Can I pull these guys back further? First U.S. heavy artillery is going to fall back. We only have one artillery shell, so I don't think it's worth the bombardment. Can we reinforce these guys? We can't. We're currently dug in level 1. I could swing the 11th Army up. That may have been dumb to pull back the heavy artillery, just because they can only attack with one wide. What's the supply situation going to be like in the next turn? No better. What I really need to do is get back, like, switch these guys here so that they're at the approaches to Sicily. I guess I'll do the 2-2 just to hopefully do a little bit of damage against him. And then we'll keep pulling the artillery back next turn. This American Corps, the Americal Corps, can do a landing strike here. Alright, so we'll land these guys here. I'd rather sacrifice a corps of infantry than an army. So these guys will sort of jump in here and then be the primary focus for this German onslaught here. We did weaken the 10th German Army a bit there. Okay, I'm hoping the Germans don't move through Iraq since I think it's neutral. Looks like it's neutral. These guys low on supply? They're incredibly low on supply. Let's just reinforce this headquarters and hopefully survive. They've only got 1 and 0. So they may attrit themselves out of existence there. Okay. So we did Italy. We touched what's worth touching in Great Britain. There's nothing to transport out of the U.S. East Coast. If we zoom out here, and we've got this British sub we can bring back into the Med and maybe move around to the Atlantic. So I guess that moves us back to Europe, or to Asia. All right, so we've got this one Japanese corps, the 3rd Corps, which is very low on supply, exposed here at Wanting. So we'll attack here, our Special Forces, and our Expeditionary Corps of New Zealand troops. We'll swap out the Bengali Corps of British troops here. Didn't quite finish these guys off. Alright, so we couldn't quite finish off this Japanese Corps here. It's down to 1 hit point. I could move the Assam Corps in from India, but their morale is 1%, so that feels like a bad idea. Let's just reinforce them. Okay. Meanwhile, on the Chinese front, the Japanese have a highly experienced Marine unit here at Canton. We really can't touch, so we'll just try to reinforce what we can. Are we just low on supply? Is that why we can't really do anything here? To reinforce these guys. Get these guys up to 10 strength. Can the troops at Amoy reinforce? They can't. Can't even jump on transports. It's because it doesn't have 5 supply. It'll have it this next turn. Alright, well I guess that's it for our invasion in China. What about Japan here? What can we do? Can our bombers on Okinawa do anything? Nope, they're socked in by rain. Guess we can at least upgrade the fighters. Long range level 2, it's only 12. Alright, so can these guys jump on transports? They can, that's nice. I'm curious if there's enemy troops at Seoul. There are. Alright, so I'd hope that maybe Seoul was empty of enemy troops, but that appears to not be the case. There are troops there, and that is an alternate capital, so we're not going to do anything there. These troops, meanwhile, at Hakodate, meanwhile, were able to hold out. They're still dug in. They've got pretty good morale. We'll go ahead and reinforce them and hopefully try and hold out here and draw some Japanese troops toward them. This infantry corps here, let's try and bombard it with a bunch of naval gunfire and see if we can't... Oh, actually, undo that. Do a little bit of damage there. Okay. Pull this transport back because it's already used its sort of landing attack. Every landing craft gets like 1 attack where it's sort of attacking over the beach, and then when it lands, it can actually do another attack. Now, these bombardments aren't doing anything from a... They're not destroying any of the enemy unit here, but they are dropping its morale and its readiness a bit. So as you can see here, the morale is 3%, the readiness is 51%. You can try and hit them with air, but it looks like their anti-aircraft fire will be somewhat effective against us. What if we move infantry up here? Try and hit with our mechanized troops. We get 2 attacks out of Hiroshima there. I wish I had prepped these guys. Oh, they are prepared. Why can't they fly anywhere? Huh. Can we reinforce the aircraft? We can. All right. I really wish I could pull these guys out somewhere. Damn it! Oh yeah, the pairs are in rain. Good call. Alright, we'll throw these Rangers on transports and try and swing them around. That's, I think, what you maybe is the key to the invasion of Japan, is using your amphibious capabilities to continually flank and push on the enemy there. I can get a 1-to-1 here. I really don't want to swap my I mean, I guess I will. And that did nothing. So that armor is going to be particularly vulnerable to these enemy anti-tank guns. I shouldn't have dropped these troops behind enemy lines there. They'll be in a rough spot supply-wise. All right. I just have no room to move anything right now. That's the problem. I can't move the headquarter unit there either? Huh. Yeah, no jump tonight. All right. Give me good weather tomorrow, I guess. That's got to be the hope. Reinforce these aircraft. There's enemy anti-aircraft guns here. Get our warships around this unit here to protect it a little bit. Alright, so we reinforce those 2 air groups. Too much rain in China as well. Swing these guys north to try and... I was going to send these British troops, or these Commonwealth troops, to reinforce the invasion of China, but it doesn't seem like that's going anywhere. So... Oh shit. Can these guys get on transports? They're not in any way linked via the Hong Kong force there, so move them over toward Amoy. Maybe Amoy will get a little bit better supply tomorrow. Alright, this escort carrier can upgrade with long-range aircraft. I don't think that's super critical right now, so we're going to move these guys back. We'll reinforce this cruiser. We can't reinforce anything to full strength, unfortunately, on the front lines near Japan because they're too... I don't know what the right word is, but it's essentially the supply level never gets high enough at these frontline bases to do a full refit. Meanwhile, we can move these fighters. These are tactical bombers, so these will be useful versus the Japanese troops. I'm not sure what range they have. Let's move them into Japan proper, I guess, and hope for good weather. So they should be useful in hitting ground targets. They'll also have 7 supply next turn because of the headquarter unit there being at Nagasaki. No, I did have a second front. We just got ejected from the continent. So there is that. We had a second front. We just lost it. All right. I'm going to pull that air group back so it can reinforce a little bit. Japanese sub here. I don't really have any destroyers to deal with the sub either. So that's not great. I can use air power against it. Somewhat effectively. Or not really effectively at all. The escort carriers are actually decent. But that's about it against enemy subs. Swing. Can this guy reach there? No, we can't. So could send this guy over here. Oh shit, I had him set to escort. Fuck! I don't want to pull this carrier, the Wasp, out though. We need some air cover over the troops in China, so we'll keep it where it is. Hey, we got a hit on that Japanese sub. Still can't reach it with the escort, though. All right, well, I think that's about it for our combat forces this turn. We can use some money potentially on research. The U.S. is already researching advanced fighters level 5. We're almost to jet fighters. We've already maxed out tank research. Infantry research is maxed out. Artillery is maxed out as well. Advanced subs, not so much. That's not as important. Long-range aircraft, again, heavy bombers. Those are things that would be useful if we were doing better than we are. Anti-submarine warfare is researching and almost to level 4. We could throw another stack behind it to get it up toward level 5. That's probably going to be more useful in the Atlantic versus the Germans than against the Japanese in the current state of the game. We're almost to level 5 anti-aircraft, industrial technology. So there's not a lot of room left to spend R&D on the Allied side. I guess we'll spend a little bit on ASW just because that'll probably become useful at some point. For the British, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to start ticking down the convoy or the convoy support from Great Britain to the USSR to try and preserve our MPPs. So rather than giving them 40% of our income, we'll tick that down to maybe just like 15%, which is 124 MPPs. Because again, I don't think anything we build now will probably survive long enough to matter. So we'll also spend, we've got 145 MPPs left. Is there anything the British should be researching that they're not? They're working on level 5 fighters. They're not quite there yet. Naval weaponry, level 2. They've already invested in it. We could throw another chit there, but we don't have the money right now. And it's kind of not really, doesn't make a lot of sense right now. ASW probably we should spend, but that's a little bit more than we have in the bank at the moment. Same for anti-aircraft defenses. Production technology, probably. So let's do that. Gert von Rundstedt, thank you very much for the follow. I didn't get a alert in my ear, but it should have triggered an alert. All right, so we'll do that for the British. For the Americans, I think we'll just spend the 500 points on new units. So let's see here. What do we want to spend it on? Maybe more tactical bombers. I feel like TAC Air would be really useful in the Pacific to try and break up the Japanese formations on the home islands. Medium bombers could also be useful. Strat bombers less so, ironically. Warships probably not so much. They'd be more useful in the Atlantic. We could go with fighters. Those would be useful in the Pacific or in the Atlantic versus the Germans. Maybe just more units. I feel like tanks will be useful when the Germans try to invade Great Britain. Let's just go with fighters, actually. So we'll purchase 312 worth of that. Then we have 200 MPPs left. I think we will spend that on tanks. Or maybe artillery. So those will be deployed on the European front. You can see here we already have tactical bombers and tactical fighters, or tactical bombers and, I guess, what are they? Tactical bombers and medium bombers are coming in February of next year. The artillery that we just bought will come in January. The fighters we just bought will come in April. We've got more tactical bombers and regular fighters coming later this year for the U.S., so we've really invested heavily in air. The British probably don't. They've got one ground unit coming in November. The Soviets, meanwhile, we've got 366 MPPs that we should probably invest in some new units. We could go with the 1st Polish Corps because we get a discount on them since they were recently destroyed. We can go with, I mean, the shock armies we've already maxed out. We've got as many of those as we can buy. We go with armor. Again, the Soviet armor is still only level 2 armor, so it's not very effective. It's kind of a waste of money, I think. So maybe we shouldn't go with that. Same for heavy tanks. I guess we could just go with special forces or mechanized infantry. The mechanized infantry is the one thing that we seem to do okay with. But armies and mechanized infantry are the same price. I can't afford a full army. At least not with upgraded infantry weapons. We could do a corps, so we'll do that. We'll save the 86 MPPs till next turn. You can see quite a few Soviet troops are stacked up, coming between now and December of 45. So we'll see if those can survive. BT-7s versus Panthers, basically. Meanwhile, the Indian troops have 137, 139 MPPs sitting around. Not enough to buy anything new at the moment, so we'll stockpile those. And the Chinese have 88 MPPs. I think we'll just leave those as is. Did I buy a Chinese headquarters? I did, and that's coming next turn, so that'll be nice. Maybe we can start a counteroffensive in northern China with a. Once we get a headquarters unit there, it'll make our supply situation much better if we try and push east. So the one Chinese capital left is at Umrichi here, and we've got the Chinese Youth Army, which sounds great, and then 3 Chinese infantry corps all stacked up here with a headquarters unit. Maybe we could begin a counterattack. For the moment, they're all dug in around the remaining capital. But anything we can do to put some pressure on the Japanese is sort of my priority at the moment. But we'll try all these special forces units here, maybe coming up, getting their landing attacks to try and see if we can't squeeze these anti-tank guns and 16th Japanese armies and maybe make a little bit of progress toward Osaka. But we'll see how it shakes out. I do have a couple more surface vessels out this way that I kind of forgot about. Can we do anything versus anti-aircraft if we bombard? Not so much. So, I mean, I can bombard different sectors of Japan for the moment, but I'm curious how if Tokyo's relatively unoccupied. Like, we can't really see Tokyo. There's no hex directly adjacent to the sea, but if we could do like a stealth landing in the rear and take Tokyo, that'd be kind of cool. But not sure that it would work out that way. I assume Japanese morale is recovering at this point. So if we take a look at national morale for Japan, the morale at least has flatlined below 20. It'll probably start bumping back up. This big drop was with the atom bomb. Mav1 Gaming, thank you very much for the follow. So we'll see how that plays out. With that being said, that's the end of this turn. So I guess we'll go ahead and end this one and see what the AI has in store for us as we move forward into late October. And then the next Allied turn, I believe, will be at the beginning of November. So late 1945, the situation is dire. for the Allies in Europe, and not terrible, but not great in Japan. So let's go ahead and bring us forward to the next turn and see what we have in store. All right, everybody, that's going to do it for this episode of Strategic Command World War II, World at War. We have continued the conflict through the fall of 1945, or approaching the winter. Hopefully General Winter gets here soon. The Soviets are still on the verge of defeat, but they haven't been defeated yet. And as you've seen, our offensive in Japan is continuing, although without too much progress. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this episode up here. We've returned to the series, and we'll probably see more regular episodes of this series for a little bit now. I've done a couple of live streams on my channel over the last few days, so I've probably got like the next 6 episodes or so of this series, continuing ourselves into 1946. I know this was a pretty popular series on the channel for a while. There's been a little bit of an intermission, but we are back now. However, that'll do it for today's episode. So until next time, this is the Historical Gamer saying once again, thank you very much for watching, and until next time, I'm out.